It's a question that hangs in the air, heavy, suffocating. A question no child should ever have to ask. Dad, why did Mom leave us? Did we do something wrong? How do you even start to explain to your innocent kids, whose worlds have just been blown apart, that their mother's hunt for personal happiness, her desperate need for a fresh start with a new guy, somehow mattered more than their hearts, their stability, their entire childhoods? This isn't just a story about a marriage falling apart. No, this is about how a family was systematically torn down, how my children became the collateral damage in their mother's quest for a different life. And it's about how we, the ones left behind, have been trying to pick up the shattered pieces ever since. It's the story of an abandonment that echoed far, far beyond the day she just walked out the door. Looking back is strange, isn't it? Hindsight's supposed to be 20/20, but sometimes it just shines a harsher light on all the shadows you missed, the cracks you tried to paper over with denial and a whole lot of hope. For 15 years, Sarah and I had built a life, or at least that's what I thought. We had a comfortable home, nothing fancy, but it was ours. It was filled with the usual soundtrack of a young family: little feet thudding down the hallway, squeals of laughter from the bathtub, the nightly ritual of bedtime stories, our voices hushed in the dim glow of a nightlight. We had two beautiful kids, Liam, who was 10 when this all started to unravel, and little Emily, just 7. Liam was our thoughtful, sensitive one, always asking questions, always trying to figure out the world. Emily, she was our firecracker, a bundle of boundless energy and infectious giggles, a tiny artist who left a trail of glitter and crayon masterpieces everywhere she went. To anyone looking in, we were the picture of contentment. The yearly family vacations, school plays, weekend soccer games. I even coached Liam's team for a couple of seasons. Sarah was the PTA mom, always volunteering, always with a smile that seems, looking back, a little too bright, maybe a little too practiced. We had barbecues in the summer, neighbors over, the smell of charcoal and freshly cut grass mixing with the sound of kids laughing. It felt, well, normal. It felt stable. I worked hard, probably too hard sometimes. I had a demanding engineering job, long hours, always feeling that pressure to provide, to give them everything I never had. Was that my first mistake? Thinking that a good paycheck and a comfortable house were the main ingredients for a happy family? Sarah was a stay-at-home mom, a choice we'd made together early on. She said she wanted to be there for all the milestones, and I supported that. I genuinely admired it. I saw her as the anchor of our family, the steady hand guiding our kids through their early years. Our intimate life, well, it had cooled. That's the gentle way to put it. It had become infrequent, almost mechanical. But I just chalked it up to the stresses of parenting, to pure exhaustion. It's just a phase, I'd tell myself. All long-term couples go through this. We talked, sure, but mostly about logistics, school schedules, bills, whose turn it was to take out the recycling. Those deeper conversations, the kind that bare souls and bridge divides, they'd become rare, and then, eventually, non-existent. I see that clearly now. Back then, I just saw us as a team, maybe a tired team, but still a team, working towards the shared goal of raising our kids. There were subtle shifts, almost too small to notice at first. Sarah started spending more time on her phone, smiling at texts from a new friend from that online book club. She took up a new yoga class, then another. She started going out for girls' nights with people I'd never even met. A new wardrobe appeared, a sudden interest in makeup and hairstyles she'd never bothered with before. I remember feeling a little uneasy, but I pushed it down. She deserves to have her own interests, her own life outside of being a wife and mom, I reasoned. It's healthy. I didn't want to be that controlling husband, the suspicious partner. I wanted to trust her. Because honestly, the alternative was just unthinkable. The children, in their innocence, only noticed the surface stuff. "Mommy looks pretty," Emily would say. Liam, always the observant one, once asked, "Is Mom okay? She seems different." I just ruffled his hair and said, "Mom's just happy, buddy, finding some new hobbies." God, the lies we tell ourselves, and then by extension our children. Looking back, the signs were all there, like faint, almost invisible ink, slowly developing under the heat of an impending disaster. The growing emotional distance, the carefully curated new life she was building, brick by brick, outside the walls of our family home. I was too busy, too complacent, too damn trusting to see the demolition plan she was drawing up for the life we had built together. I thought we were just navigating the normal ups and downs of a long-term marriage. I had no idea we were on a collision course with a choice she was about to make, a choice that would put her own desires above everything and everyone. We were supposed to be together. The before wasn't some golden age, but it was our age, our family, our shared history, and it was about to be completely erased. The day the facade finally came crashing down wasn't dramatic like in the movies. No thrown plates, no tearful confessions in the pouring rain. It was a Tuesday, mundane, ordinary. I came home from work a bit later than usual, carrying takeout because I knew Sarah had her yoga night. The kids were in the living room, lost in a video game, the usual post-school racket filling the air. Sarah was home, which was odd for a yoga night. She was sitting at the kitchen table just staring at her phone, a glass of wine untouched beside her. There was this unnerving stillness about her, a total contrast to the vibrant, almost forced energy she'd been putting out for months. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "Thought you had yoga?" She didn't look up right away. When she finally did, her eyes were flat, empty. "We need to talk, Mark." My stomach just clenched. Those 4 words are rarely a prelude to anything good, are they? The kids, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, had gone quiet in the other room. "Okay," I said, sitting down across from her. "What's up?" She took a breath, a shaky one. "I'm not happy, Mark." A classic opener. I haven't been happy for a very, very long time. I waited. I'd heard versions of this before, during those rare, strained conversations about us. Usually it was followed by suggestions for a date night or a weekend away, attempts to rekindle something we'd both let slide. But this time felt different. Her voice didn't have that usual edge of frustration or pleading. It was resigned, final. "I've met someone," she said, the words dropping like stones into a silent pond. My mind just reeled. Someone? The friend from the book club? The yoga mates? How incredibly blind had I been? Images flashed through my mind, the secretive smiles at her phone, the late nights, the new clothes. It was a tidal wave of sickening realization. "Who?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. "It doesn't matter who he is," she said, a touch of impatience creeping in now. "What matters is that he makes me feel alive. He makes me feel seen. Things I haven't felt with you in years." Each word was like a hammer blow. Years. Not weeks, not months. Years. Had I been sharing my life, my bed, my children with a woman who was, in her heart, already long gone? "And what about us, Sarah?" I asked, anger starting to simmer beneath the shock. "What about Liam and Emily? What about our family?" She finally looked me right in the eye, and what I saw there chilled me to the bone. It wasn't malice, not exactly. It was detachment, like she was discussing a business deal that was no longer profitable. "That's just it, Mark. This," she gestured vaguely around the kitchen at the life we had built, "isn't working for me anymore. I need more. I deserve more." "Deserve more?" My voice rose. I couldn't help it. "What about what the kids deserve? They deserve their mother. They deserve a stable home. And they will have that," she said coolly, "with you. You're a good father, Mark. They'll be fine. They'll be fine." The casual cruelty of that statement, as if their lives, their emotional well-being, were just minor inconveniences to be brushed aside in her pursuit of this new, apparently intoxicating happiness. The conversation just spiraled downwards from there. I pleaded, I raged. I asked all the cliched questions. How could you do this to us? When did this even start? Was any of it real? Her answers were vague, evasive, always circling back to her own needs, her own unhappiness. She talked about feeling trapped, of losing herself in motherhood, of wanting to rediscover the woman she was before marriage and kids. It was all about her journey, her fulfillment. The other man, whose name I eventually managed to pry out of her, Michael, a colleague from some freelance project she'd picked up, was apparently her soulmate, the one who understood her in ways I never could. He was exciting, adventurous, not weighed down by the kind of responsibilities she now saw as chains. The most chilling part was her plan. It was already fully formed. She wasn't asking for a trial separation, not suggesting counseling. She was telling me she was leaving. She was moving in with him, and it was happening soon. "I'll tell the kids with you if you want," she offered, as if this was some kind of grand gesture. "Or I can just go. Maybe that would be easier for them." Easier for her is what she meant. That night, after she'd retreated to the spare room, a move that screamed finality louder than any words could, I sat alone in the dark, the silence of the house absolutely deafening. The weight of what was happening, what was about to happen to my children, just pressed down on me. This wasn't just a divorce. This was an abdication. She wasn't just leaving me. She was leaving them. For him. For a new life she clearly believed couldn't include the old one. Couldn't include the little hands that would reach for hers in the night. The voices that called her Mommy. The catalyst wasn't some big fight or a single event. It was a decision she had made, in secret, to detonate our lives and just walk away from the wreckage in search of something she valued more. And we, the family she was discarding, were about to feel the full force of that explosion. The days after Sarah's announcement were a blur of hushed, tense conversations, slammed doors, and this suffocating weight of things left unsaid. The house, once filled with the comforting chaos of family life, now felt like a mausoleum, haunted by the ghost of what we used to be. Sarah moved with a chilling efficiency, sorting her things, packing boxes, her demeanor a strange mix of pretend regret and barely hidden excitement. It was like she was shedding an old skin, just eager to step into her new, unburdened life. The hardest part, the part that still twists my insides into knots, was telling the children. How do you even try to explain such a massive betrayal in words a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old can understand? Sarah, true to her detached form, suggested we keep it simple. Mommy and Daddy aren't going to live together anymore. Mommy's going to live somewhere else. No mention of Michael, no real explanation for why. Just a blunt, brutal statement. We sat them down on the sofa, that familiar old couch where we'd watched countless movies, read stories, cuddled. Their faces, usually so open and expressive, were etched with confusion, then dawning horror. Liam, my sensitive boy, looked from her face to mine, his brow furrowed. "But why?" he asked, his voice so small. Sarah launched into her rehearsed lines, her voice carefully neutral. "Sometimes grown-ups decide they need to live in different houses to be happy. We both still love you very much. Love you very much." The words sounded so hollow, a cruel joke when you considered she was about to walk out on them. Emily, bless her innocent heart, just didn't get it. "But where will you sleep, Mommy? Can I visit your new house? Will it have a pink room?" Sarah faltered then, just for a second. A flicker of something, guilt, discomfort, crossed her face before she quickly masked it. "Yes, sweetie, you can visit. We'll figure all that out." Liam wasn't so easily put off. "Is it because of us?" he asked, his eyes welling up. "Did we do something bad?" That question, the one that haunts every child of divorce, of abandonment. That desperate need to find a reason, any reason, even if it means blaming themselves. "No, honey, of course not," I jumped in, my voice thick with emotion. "This is about Mommy and Daddy, not about you. You are perfect. You've done nothing wrong." But how could they possibly believe that when their mother was actively choosing to leave them? The day Sarah actually left is seared into my memory. The movers came for her boxes, a stark, impersonal removal of her presence from our home. The children watched, bewildered, from the window. Emily cried, these big gulping sobs clinging to my leg. "Don't go, Mommy. Please don't go." Liam stood silently, tears just streaming down his face, his small shoulders shaking. He didn't say a word, but his eyes, fixed on his mother, were filled with a pain so deep it felt like a physical blow. Sarah's goodbye was brief. A quick hug for each of them, a mumbled, "Be good, I'll call you." Then she was gone, climbing into Michael's waiting car. He didn't even have the decency to stay away on that day, and driving off towards her new life, leaving this gaping wound in the heart of ours. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Not just the logistical chaos of me suddenly becoming a single parent, juggling work and school runs and meals and laundry, but emotional chaos. The children were completely adrift. Emily started having nightmares, waking up screaming for her mother. She regressed, wanting to sleep in my bed, sucking her thumb. Things she hadn't done in years. Her bright, bubbly personality just dimmed, replaced by this fearful, clingy child who was terrified I would leave her too. The fear of abandonment had sunk its awful claws into her tiny heart. Liam, on the other hand, just retreated into himself. His grades plummeted. He stopped talking about his day, stopped hanging out with his friends. He'd sit for hours in his room, staring blankly at a screen or a book. Sometimes I'd hear him crying softly at night, this desolate, heartbreaking sound. He started to develop this quiet anger, a resentment that simmered just beneath the surface. He'd lash out unexpectedly, usually at me, his confusion and pain just manifesting as defiance. He felt rejected, unwanted, and that feeling of worthlessness began to cast a long shadow. I felt like I was drowning. The physical and emotional burden was enormous. Sleep became a luxury I just couldn't afford. I was constantly exhausted, irritable, overwhelmed. I tried to be patient, to be understanding, to be both mother and father to my grieving children. But some days I felt like a complete failure. The house felt empty, cold, despite my best efforts to keep things feeling normal. Routines became our lifeline, a fragile structure in the midst of all the emotional wreckage. Sarah's contact was sporadic at best. She'd call, her voice all bright and breezy, talking about her new apartment, her exciting new life with Michael, seemingly oblivious to the devastation she'd left behind. She'd ask to speak to the children, and their reactions were telling. Emily would often refuse, hiding behind me, shaking her head. Liam would be monosyllabic, his answers clipped, his resentment almost tangible. The visits she'd promised were infrequent and so strained. Michael was always there, this unwelcome presence, a constant reminder of why their mother had left. Sarah would try to be enthusiastic, suggesting outings, but the children were withdrawn, uncomfortable. It was clear they didn't feel like they belonged in her new life, and she made little effort to bridge that gap, to really connect with them on their terms, in their pain. It felt more like an obligation she was fulfilling, a box she was ticking, rather than a genuine desire to actually be with her children. Every broken promise, every missed call, every casual mention of her wonderful new life was another small cut, deepening the wound of abandonment. The children were learning a very harsh lesson, that their mother's happiness was number one, and their feelings were a distant second. They began to internalize the message that they weren't important enough, not lovable enough for her to stay. I tried to shield them, to absorb the blows, but the damage was being done. Their trust in one of the two most important people in their lives had been shattered, and the repercussions were echoing through every part of their young lives. The easy laughter, the carefree innocence, it was all being eroded, replaced by this watchfulness, a sadness that no child should ever have to carry. Our family dynamic hadn't just been altered, it had been fundamentally broken. And the architect of that destruction was off living her best life, seemingly unconcerned with the ruin she'd created. The shattering was profound, and the pieces, I feared, might never quite fit back together in the same way again. If you're watching this and you've gone through something similar, either as a child or as a parent, please know you're not alone. The pain of family breakdown, especially like this, is just immense. Share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Sometimes just knowing others understand can make a small difference. And if you want to hear more about our journey, think about subscribing to the channel. The months just crawled by, each one a new landscape of grief and trying to adjust. We stumbled through Halloween, a hollow imitation of past celebrations. Thanksgiving was a quiet affair, that empty chair at the table a glaring symbol of our fractured family. Christmas was even harder, the forced cheer feeling almost sacrilegious when we were all so sad. Through it all, Sarah's presence was like this flickering, unreliable light, occasionally there but mostly absent, her excuses for missed visits or short phone calls becoming flimsier and flimsier. She was completely absorbed in her new life, her new love, and her old responsibilities seemed to be fading further and further into the background. The true rock bottom, the moment that really crystallized the full, devastating extent of her abandonment, came on Emily's 8th birthday. Birthdays had always been a huge deal in our family. Sarah, in her past life as a devoted mother, had orchestrated these elaborate parties, themed cakes, scavenger hunts. Emily had been talking about her 8th birthday for months, this small beacon of hope she was clinging to. She'd even, tentatively, asked if Mommy would come to her party, a small gathering I was planning with a few of her school friends. I'd passed the invitation on to Sarah. "Of course I'll try my best," she'd said, her voice distant, preoccupied. "Things are just so hectic here with Michael's new project." As the day got closer, Emily's excitement was tinged with anxiety. "Is Mommy really coming, Daddy?" she'd ask, her lower lip trembling. I'd reassure her, or try to, my own doubts growing with each passing day. She said she'd try her best, sweetie. "We'll make sure you have a wonderful birthday no matter what." The day of the party arrived, a bright Saturday morning. Emily woke up radiating this fragile hope. She put on her favorite party dress, helped me decorate the living room with balloons and streamers, her eyes constantly darting to the window, watching for her mother's car. Her little friends arrived, the house filled with their excited chatter, the smell of pizza and birthday cake. But Sarah didn't come. Hours passed. The games were played, the presents were opened, the cake was cut. With each passing minute, Emily's smile faltered a little more, her eyes growing wider, more troubled. She kept asking me, "Is Mommy coming soon? Did she call?" I made excuses. "Maybe she got held up in traffic, honey. Maybe she's running a little late." I called Sarah's phone multiple times, straight to voicemail. I sent texts, no reply. As the party wound down and her friends began to leave, Emily's carefully constructed composure finally just shattered. She dissolved into tears, a torrent of heartbroken sobs that racked her small body. "Mommy didn't come," she wailed, burying her face in my chest. "She forgot my birthday. She doesn't love me anymore." It was this raw, primal outpouring of grief and rejection. Holding her, feeling her little body shake with such profound sorrow, my own heart broke into a million pieces. There was absolutely nothing I could say to make it better, no platitude that could soothe the sting of her mother's deliberate absence, because it was deliberate. Even if she'd genuinely forgotten, which I found hard to believe, her failure to even call to acknowledge her daughter's special day was an act of profound negligence, a testament to how little her children now factored into her priorities. Later that evening, after a tearful, exhausted Emily had finally cried herself to sleep, Sarah called. Her voice was light, cheerful. "Hey, how was the party? Sorry, I got totally swamped. Michael decided we should take a spontaneous weekend trip to the coast. The weather was just too gorgeous to pass up. You know how it is. You know how it is." The casual, unthinking cruelty of those words. As if a weekend getaway with her new lover was a perfectly acceptable reason to break her daughter's heart, to miss her birthday without so much as a phone call. I don't remember exactly what I said. I know my voice was low, trembling with a rage I'd never felt before. I told her what she had done, the devastation she had caused. I told her Emily had cried herself to sleep believing her mother didn't love her. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line, then a sigh. "Oh, Mark, don't be so dramatic. I'll make it up to her. I'll send her a nice present. She'll get over it. Kids are resilient." Kids are resilient. That convenient excuse used by so many parents to absolve themselves of the pain they inflict. But resilience isn't about not feeling pain. It's about surviving it. And my children were being forced to survive an emotional onslaught they never, ever deserved. That night, something shifted within me. The last little bits of hope I'd harbored for Sarah, for some semblance of co-parenting, for some recognition on her part of the damage she was causing, just died. I saw her finally for who she had become. A woman so consumed by her own desires that she was willing to sacrifice her children's emotional well-being on the altar of her new life. Her abandonment was no longer just a physical act of leaving. It was an ongoing emotional desertion, a consistent pattern of neglect and broken promises. Emily's forgotten birthday was the brutal climax, the moment the full weight of her mother's choice came crashing down, not just on me, but on the innocent heart of our child. The lowest point had been reached, and the path ahead looked darker and more challenging than ever. The aftermath of Emily's forgotten birthday was a turning point, but not in a good way. It really hammered home to the kids, in the most painful way possible, that their mother's new life came first. The grueling adjustment became our new normal. Liam's quiet anger hardened into a shell. He rarely spoke of his mother anymore, and when he did, it was with a bitterness that was pretty unnerving in a kid his age. School continued to be a struggle for him. His teachers said he was disengaged, often sullen. He had friends, but he kept them at arm's length. A new defensiveness in how he interacted with them. That fear of being hurt again, of trusting someone only to be let down, was almost palpable. Emily, though she eventually stopped crying every night, carried this persistent sadness. Her earlier clinginess turned into a quiet anxiety. She needed constant reassurance that I wasn't going anywhere, that she was loved. The carefree little girl was still in there, but she was buried under layers of insecurity and a way too early understanding of loss. She started drawing pictures of families, but in her drawings, the mother figure was always distant or just missing altogether. My life became this relentless cycle of work, childcare, and trying to manage the emotional fallout. I threw myself into being the most stable, present parent I could possibly be. We established new routines, new family traditions that were just for the three of us. Pizza and movie night on Fridays, pancake breakfasts on Sundays, trips to the park, game nights. I learned to braid Emily's hair, to help Liam with his increasingly complex homework, to listen not just to their words, but to the silences in between. I cooked, I cleaned, I juggled parent-teacher conferences and doctor's appointments. It was exhausting, absolutely exhausting, but it was also, in a strange way, clarifying. My purpose was singular: to protect my children, to help them heal, to show them that they were, and always would be, unconditionally loved and prioritized. Sarah's involvement, or rather lack of it, continued on its downward slide. The phone calls became less frequent, the visits even more so. When she did see the children, it was often strained and awkward. She'd try to bridge the gap with expensive gifts, a transparent attempt to buy their affection or maybe ease her own guilt. But the children weren't easily swayed anymore. They wanted her time, her attention, her presence, things she was increasingly unwilling or unable to give. Then came the next phase, the formal introduction of Michael into their lives, not just as Mommy's friend, but as Mommy's partner. Sarah announced one day that Michael was moving in with her permanently, and she wanted the children to start thinking of him as part of their extended family. Talk about a delicate situation, just fraught with potential problems. Their first few family outings with Sarah and Michael were pretty much disastrous. Michael, to his credit, seemed to try, but he was awkward, unsure how to interact with kids who clearly saw him as the man who had taken their mother away. He tried to be fun, to be a buddy, but Liam would just glower at him, and Emily would hide behind me if I was there for the handover, or behind Sarah if I wasn't. Sarah, meanwhile, seemed to expect the children to just embrace Michael instantly, to seamlessly integrate into her new blended reality. She'd get frustrated when they were resistant or withdrawn, seeing their behavior as stubbornness rather than a natural reaction to the trauma they'd been through. She didn't understand, or perhaps didn't want to understand, that children need time, patience, and permission to navigate such complex emotional stuff. There were a few particularly tense incidents. One time, Michael tried to discipline Liam for some minor thing, and Liam just exploded. "You're not my dad," he yelled, his face red with fury. "My dad wouldn't have let Mom leave us." The silence that followed was thick with unspoken accusations and raw pain. Sarah sided with Michael, telling Liam he was being disrespectful. It just drove another wedge between her and her son. Another time, Emily came home from a visit visibly upset. When I finally got her to talk, she tearfully explained that Michael had made a joke about how much quieter and tidier their apartment was now that it was just him and Sarah, without all the kid chaos. It was a thoughtless comment maybe, but to Emily, it was more proof that they were an inconvenience, a burden their mother had happily shed. I tried to navigate these co-parenting challenges as best I could, always with the children's well-being as my main concern. I avoided speaking negatively about Sarah or Michael in front of them, as hard as that sometimes was. Research: avoid negative talk. I encouraged the children to express their feelings, to talk about their confusion and hurt. We even started family therapy, a safe space for them to process their grief and for me to learn better coping strategies. There were small victories, tiny glimmers of light in the darkness. Emily started to giggle again, her natural sparkle occasionally breaking through her sadness. Liam found an outlet in skateboarding, a solo pursuit where he could channel some of his frustration. We, as a unit of 3, grew closer, bound by our shared experience, our shared resilience. We were building a new kind of family, one forged in adversity, but a family nonetheless. But the shadow of their mother's choices and the presence of the new man in her life remained a constant source of tension and pain. The adjustment was not a smooth path. It was a grueling, uphill climb, littered with setbacks and fresh heartaches. We were rebuilding, but on fractured foundations, and the ghost of the family we once were, and the mother they once knew, lingered. A constant reminder of all that had been lost. The falling action was less a gentle descent and more like a controlled demolition, with us scrambling to salvage what we could from the rubble. Years have passed since Sarah walked out, trading her role as a mother for the allure of a new life with a new man. Our current reality is a landscape that's been forever changed by her choices. It's not a neat, tidy resolution, because life rarely offers those, especially when deep wounds are involved, right? The scars are still there, on all of us. They've faded somewhat from raw, gaping wounds to paler, thinner lines, but they're permanent reminders of the shattering. Liam is a young man now, navigating the complexities of early adulthood. That anger he carried for so long has softened, replaced by a kind of weary understanding, though a certain cynicism about relationships, particularly romantic ones, definitely remains. He's intelligent, capable, and fiercely independent, maybe too much so at times. His relationship with Sarah is, well, it's polite, distant. He sees her occasionally, usually on holidays or significant family events, on my side of the family, that is. He doesn't confide in her, doesn't seek her advice. The bond that was so brutally severed has never fully mended. He learned early on that trust is a fragile thing, easily broken. He has this guardedness about him, a reluctance to let people get too close, a lingering echo of that initial profound betrayal. Emily is a teenager, full of all the contradictions that age brings. She's resilient, yes, but also deeply sensitive. The anxiety that plagued her younger years still pops up occasionally, especially during times of stress or change. She craves stability and reassurance. Her relationship with Sarah is more complex than Liam's. There's a longing there, a daughter's innate desire for her mother, mixed with a deep-seated hurt that has never entirely gone away. She engages more with Sarah, but there's always a carefulness in their interactions, a sense that Emily is protecting her own heart. She too struggles with trust, and the fear of abandonment, though less obvious now, subtly colors her friendships and her outlook. She has asked Sarah, in her more direct teenage way, why she left. Sarah's answers are still all about her own needs, her own journey, something Emily finds incredibly difficult to reconcile with the pain it caused. As for me, I've learned more about myself, about fatherhood, about resilience, than I ever thought possible. Those initial years were a trial by fire. There were times I felt like I was failing, completely overwhelmed by the sheer weight of it all. But my children were my anchors. Their needs, their well-being, became my sole focus. I learned to be both nurturer and provider, to listen with my heart, to be patient, to forgive myself for not being perfect. Our little unit of 3 became a fortress of love and support. We found a new rhythm, a new normal. It's not the life I envisioned 15 years ago, not by a long shot, but it's our life, built on honesty, mutual respect, and an unbreakable bond. Sarah and Michael are still together. From what I hear, their life is comfortable. Whether it's the ecstatic happiness she envisioned, the happiness for which she sacrificed her family, I honestly don't know. I rarely speak to her directly anymore. Communication is usually through texts or brief logistical emails about the children. There's no animosity on my part, not anymore. That burned out long ago, replaced by a kind of sorrowful acceptance. I see her as someone who made a choice, a profoundly damaging one, and now lives with the consequences of that, whether she fully acknowledges them or not. Perhaps in her own way she carries her own scars. Society can be pretty tough on mothers who leave, even if it's often unspoken. Reflecting on it all, the word that comes to mind is responsibility. The responsibility of a parent to their child is, in my view, sacred. It is not a role you can just discard when it becomes inconvenient or when a more appealing option comes along. Her pursuit of personal happiness, while understandable in the abstract, became destructive when it meant abandoning her children. They weren't an obstacle to her happiness. They should have been an integral part of it. What message do I want to leave with anyone watching this? Firstly, to anyone who has experienced parental abandonment, please know that it was not your fault. You are worthy of love, stability, and happiness. The choices your parent made were about them, their issues, their brokenness, not about your value as a person. Secondly, to parents, especially those in struggling relationships, your children are watching, learning, absorbing everything. Your choices have lifelong impacts. The pursuit of personal fulfillment is valid, absolutely, but it should never, ever come at the cost of your children's fundamental need for security, love, and your presence. Our family was shattered, yes, but from those shattered pieces, we, Liam, Emily, and I, have built something new, something strong, something real. The pain of abandonment is a deep and lasting one, creating ripples that affect relationships and self-esteem for years to come. But it doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can also be the beginning of a new chapter, one defined by resilience, by a deeper understanding of what truly matters, and by the enduring power of a parent's unwavering love for their children. Their mother chose a different path, but their father will always, always be here. Thank you for listening to our story. It's not an easy one to tell, but I believe in the power of sharing our experiences. If this resonated with you, or if you have your own story of navigating family trauma and finding strength, please feel free to share in the comments. It helps to know we're not alone in these struggles. Don't forget to like this video if you found it meaningful, and subscribe for more reflections on life, parenting, and resilience. Take care of yourselves and cherish the ones you love.